In this video, I'll discuss how to help parents who suffer from both parental burnout and sleep problems. This advice comes from Alexandra Jacobs, who is a licensed psychologist with special training in therapy for insomnia. She works part-time in the sleep center of a well-known hospital and part-time in private practice. She has over 10 years of experience working with patients with severe sleep disorders, and she's regularly invited to share her knowledge with psychology students at the university or with licensed psychologists in continuing education. If you'd like to read a transcript of the full interview with her, translated into English, you can download the attached PDF on the training platform. So it's not uncommon for parents with parental burnout to have sleep problems, such as insomnia, and to seek treatment for their sleep problems. In this case, the first thing to do is to deal with the sleep problem in a fairly conventional way, as cognitive behavioral therapies do. One of the most important steps is to reduce the time spent in bed to how long that person sleeps on average. Let's imagine a person who sleeps normally 6 hours and is in bed for 9 hours. Well, the first thing to do is to put a sleep window in place so the person will sleep for 6 hours and will be in bed for 6 hours. You'll do this based on the ideal wake-up time, which determines the rhythm of the sleep-wake cycle. So for the patient in this example, you'll deduct 6 hours from their ideal wake-up time. If that's 7 a.m., we'll ask them to wait until 1 a.m. to go to bed. The idea here is to condense the amount of time the patient is in bed so that they can have a better quality sleep that's more continuous and less broken up, because that will already be more restorative. When starting off, increasing the quality of sleep is much more important than increasing the amount of sleep, especially for patients with insomnia. It's impossible to sleep more right off the bat. So first, you can work with the patient to condense their average amount of sleep in a continuous block. Once the patient has achieved that, then you can work on increasing the quantity of sleep. This is done by slowly opening the sleep window by going to sleep earlier and earlier. For example, we might open the sleep window by half an hour every 2 weeks, so the patient will go to sleep half an hour earlier, while still getting up at the same time. It's also important to strictly reserve time spent in bed, and ideally in the bedroom as a whole, for sleep. Any waking activities that the patient typically does in bed, such as watching TV, looking at a tablet, reading for hours, chatting, eating sometimes, that should all be stopped. Another important step for patients with sleep problems is to reserve their evenings for calm activities, and ideally turn off any screens, especially phones, tablets, and computers. So with the only potential exception of the TV, if necessary, but to really reserve their evenings for relaxing activities. This means no sports for at least 3 to 4 hours before going to sleep, and not doing any housework or frustrating tasks during this time. The idea is for the parent to really finish organizing for their next day, whether that includes getting breakfast ready, maybe putting school bags together, but in any case, to stop these household tasks at a certain time and then move on to something else. They should spend the evening once the kids are in bed in a way that is really just for the parent to have time for themselves and relax with their spouse. So some people might think it's important to go to bed as early as possible to get in all the hours of sleep that they need. But it's better, especially if the parent has sleep problems, to go to sleep later and have time for yourself at the end of the evening with a real awareness that the day is over. Another important point for parents with sleep problems is to limit screen time, especially for bed. It can be tempting to take refuge on their phone or tablet, but there is a fairly clear link with screen time inhibiting sleep, especially for people that already have sleep problems. This is due not only to the blue light generated by these devices, which can interfere with high-quality sleep, but also the fact that reading or watching content on social media or the web, that's all mentally stimulating, which can make it harder to fall asleep. So the ideal thing to do is to leave these devices outside the bedroom, so that once again, the bedroom is reserved solely for sleep. Now, another thing to think about is naps. Napping in and of itself is a good thing when there aren't any sleeping problems. Getting 10 hours of sleep, napping, that's all really dependent on what the person needs. But when someone does have sleep problems, they have to be very vigilant about taking naps. and ideally limit them to 20 minutes and before 2 p.m. The biological rhythm changes at around 2 to 3 p.m., so if the person takes a nap after 2, or for more than 20 minutes in the morning, they're going to be borrowing sleep from the night ahead, which can be a factor in maintaining sleep problems. Then, once the person no longer meets the diagnostic criteria for insomnia, they can take more naps and sleep as much as they need. But they have to always make sure that it doesn't impair their sleep during the night. Now, for burned out parents, they generally do need a lot more sleep. This is reflected in the typical advice practitioners will give to parents, which is usually to sleep 10 hours a night and take as many naps as possible. This is good advice normally, and when people are burned out, they do need more sleep than when they're in a regular state. But this is not possible for burned out parents who are also chronic insomniacs. And that's where we're really going to get back to behavioral measures by limiting the time they spend in bed and gradually increasing it until they reach the number of hours they need. So the end goal is the same for burned out parents who have insomnia. That goal is just carried out much more gradually. It's also important to keep in mind that burned out parents do indeed need a lot of sleep, but above all, what they need is rest, which is fundamental in the context of burnout. Resting is not the same as sleep. Resting is a state of being relaxed while you're awake. It's a way to center yourself, to recuperate physically, and to disengage from everyday tasks and focus on your own needs. There are many different ways to rest. You can rest by taking a walk, by practicing mindfulness, by simply contemplating things, by savoring a meal or drink, by listening to music. Resting is usually doing fairly simple actions that don't take up too much time. So resting can be done in little moments here and there. As a practitioner, your role is to help parents understand the importance of resting, that it's not the same thing as sleeping, and to work with parents to identify ways that they enjoy resting. It's especially easy for burned out parents to confuse rest with sleep because rest is often done in bed, and the parent's bedroom is one area of the house that is usually calm and without kids. What happens to some burned out parents is that to get away from their children, they say they're going to go rest and they go to their bedroom, but they don't actually sleep in their room. This can lead to a bad form of conditioning taking root, where they associate their bedroom with wakefulness instead of with sleeping. So for these parents with sleep problems, they need to learn to associate the bedroom, and the bed in particular, with sleeping. These parents should therefore rest in a place that's not their bedroom. And this can take some time to figure out, since they have to find other places in the house that are calm and quiet, which is not necessarily easy. To be clear though, if the parent does not have sleeping problems, then it's fine for them to rest in their bed. But for those parents with sleeping problems, it's crucial that they only reserve the bed for sleep. Now, as a practitioner working with burned out parents, it's important to remember that recovering from burnout takes a lot of time because there are many things you need to work on at once. You'll need to closely review, together with the patient, how they organize their life, their free time, their ways of being active. You might also work with them on how they set limits, when they say no to things, and so on. So there's a lot of really fundamental changes that need to occur. And addressing sleep problems can be quite a long process when working just on that. So when you combine it with everything else, it can all take a really long time. That's something to keep in mind, that these types of changes are not going to happen immediately, but they really take time and effort. On a related note, many of these parents are action-oriented and can be somewhat hyperactive, always running around and doing things. Hyperactivity during the day can lead to relapses and sleep problems. So if the parent hasn't fundamentally changed how they live, then sleep problems can resurface if the person starts becoming very active during the day again. Having insomnia while also being burned out thus requires making profound lifestyle changes to overcome it, more so than for patients that just have insomnia on its own. This is because a key to overcoming insomnia is to make rest periods routine. Alternating activity and rest throughout the day is a necessary condition to be able to sleep well. Sometimes parents feel like they have no choice but to be directed in action all the time. Whether at work or at the house, they feel like there's so much to do and think about. But it's absolutely necessary to introduce calm in these moments, to